Some love stories make your heart race, but this one will make you question every page. A struggling writer is offered the opportunity of a lifetime to finish the best-selling novels of a world-famous author after a tragic accident leaves her unable to write. But the moment she steps inside that house, something feels wrong. Then she finds a hidden manuscript, not a novel, a confession. With every page, she is pulled deeper into relationships so disturbing, so obsessive, that the line between fiction and reality begins to disappear. And before she realizes it, she is no longer just reading the story. She is becoming part of it. This is Verity. Lovin Ashley is a struggling writer. Her career isn't exactly going anywhere. She is dealing with financial problems, personal grief, and barely managing to keep herself afloat. Until one day, she gets an opportunity that could completely change her life. A famous author named Verity Crawford has been involved in a terrible accident, and now she is unable to finish the final books in her best-selling series. So the publishing company needs someone to finish them for her. That person is Lovin. At first, the job sounds almost too good to be true. A huge paycheck, a best-selling series, and the chance to finally prove herself as a writer. But Lovin has no idea what she is walking into, because to finish Verity's book, she has to enter Verity's house, and that's where everything begins to fall apart. Lovin travels to Vermont to stay at the Crawford family's home. The house is beautiful, but something about it feels wrong, because inside that house is Verity herself. She is lying in bed, completely motionless. After the accident, everyone believes Verity is essentially trapped inside her own body. She can't speak, she can't move, she can't communicate. At least that's what everyone believes. Verity's husband Jeremy is the one taking care of her, and Lovin quickly realizes that Jeremy isn't just a husband, he's also a grieving father, because the Crawfords have already suffered an unimaginable loss. Their twin daughters, Chastin and Harper, are dead, and their deaths have destroyed the family. Still, Jeremy tries to keep everything together, and Lovin begins working through Verity's offers, searching for notes, outlines, and anything that can help her finish the books. But then she finds something she was never supposed to see: a manuscript hidden away inside Verity's office. It's not part of the book series. It's not an unfinished novel. It's something much more disturbing, an autobiography. And Lovin starts reading it. At first, Lovin thinks she is simply discovering another side of Verity, but the more she reads, the worse it becomes. The manuscript describes Verity's relationship with Jeremy, and according to the woman writing these pages, Verity's obsession with her husband was extreme. She wanted Jeremy all to herself, even when they had children. And when Verity becomes pregnant with twins, she supposedly didn't feel the joy a mother should feel. Instead, she felt threatened, because she believed the children were taking Jeremy's attention away from her. And then the manuscript reveals something horrifying. Verity claims she tried to get rid of the babies. Not once, not accidentally, but deliberately. Lovin can barely believe what she is reading, but she keeps going, because now she needs to know how far Verity was willing to go. The manuscript describes the twins growing up, and things become even darker. Verity becomes obsessed with one of them, Harper. She begins to see Harper as a threat, and eventually the manuscript describes an attempt to kill her own child. Lovin is horrified, but then she reaches the part about the twins' death. Chastin dies first, and Harper dies later in a boating accident. According to Verity's manuscript, Harper's death wasn't an accident. Verity deliberately capsized the boat and watched her daughter drown. She writes about it as though she is confessing to everything. Lovin is devastated, because if this manuscript is real, then the woman lying helplessly upstairs isn't an innocent victim. She is a murderer, and Jeremy doesn't know. At least that's what Lovin thinks. But now Lovin has another problem. She can't stop thinking about Jeremy. He's kind, he's protective, he's completely devoted to his family, and the more time Lovin spends around him, the more attracted she becomes, which makes everything even more complicated, because Verity is upstairs and Lovin is secretly falling for her husband. At first, Lovin tries to convince herself that she is only concerned about Jeremy, but eventually the line between sympathy and desire disappears and Lowen and Jeremy become involved. A relationship begins developing between them. But there is still one person between them, Verity. And Lowen starts noticing things, small things, things that don't make sense. Because sometimes she feels like Verity is watching her. Lowen begins to suspect that Verity may not actually be as helpless as everyone believes. She notices strange movements, strange sounds, and eventually even Crew, Verity's young son, says things that make Lowen uncomfortable. Things that suggest his mother may have communicated with him. Lowen becomes convinced Verity is awake. She is pretending. But why? And how long has she been pretending? Lowen starts investigating, and the more she discovers, the more dangerous the situation becomes. Because if Verity really is conscious, then she knows about Lowen, she knows about Jeremy, and she may know about the manuscript. Lowen continues reading, and the manuscript becomes more disturbing. It describes Verity's thoughts after Harper's death. It describes her guilt, her obsession, and her supposed plan to eventually end her own life. According to the manuscript, Verity intends to drive her car into a tree, and that is exactly what happened. The accident that left her apparently brain dead may have been Verity's own attempt to kill herself. At this point, Lowen is convinced the manuscript is a confession. Verity murdered her own child, then tried to kill herself and somehow survived. But now there is another question. If Verity is really conscious, why hasn't she exposed Lowen and Jeremy? Why hasn't she told Jeremy what they are doing? Why hasn't she called for help unless she is waiting? Eventually, Lowen confronts Verity. She expects some kind of reaction, anything, but Verity remains completely still, and that makes Lowen even more terrified because now she knows she may be dealing with someone who is capable of pretending to be helpless. Lowen even places a baby monitor in Verity's room, and then she sees something. Verity moves. She's not unconscious. She's been pretending the entire time. Lowen confronts her again. But before anything can happen, Jeremy returns, and the situation reaches its breaking point. Lowen finally realizes she can't keep the manuscript secret forever. So she gives it to Jeremy and tell him the truth. She tells him what Verity wrote. She tells him about the children. She tells him about the Harper, and she tells him that Verity may have been pretending all along. Jeremy doesn't want to believe it because he spent months caring for his wife, the woman he thought was broken, the woman he thought he had lost. But eventually he reads the manuscript himself and everything changes. Jeremy goes upstairs, he confronts Verity, and at first she doesn't react. She continues pretending to be unconscious, but Jeremy threatens her. He tells her that he knows what she did, and then Verity finally drops the act. She opens her eyes. She has been aware of everything the entire time. She knew Lowen was there. She knew about Jeremy and Lowen, and she had been watching them. Verity explained that she wasn't actually helpless. She had been pretending because she believed Jeremy might kill her, and according to her, she had been planning to escape with Crew. But Jeremy doesn't care anymore. He's furious. He believes Verity murdered Harper, and he tries to kill her. Lowen stops him, but then she makes a horrifying suggestion. If Verity dies, it has to look natural. So Jeremy forces Verity to choke, and eventually Verity dies. The woman who supposedly murdered her children, the woman who supposedly murdered her daughter, is dead. And now Jeremy and Lowen have to live with what they have done. For a moment, it seems like the story is over. Verity is dead, Jeremy is free, Lowen is with him, and they can finally move on. But 7 months later, everything changes again. Lowen is pregnant, and she, Jeremy, and Crew return to the Crawford house. While preparing to leave, Lowen discovers something hidden beneath the floorboards. A letter written by Verity, and it's addressed to Jeremy. Lowen starts reading, and suddenly the entire story she thought she understood begins to collapse. Verity claims the manuscript wasn't a confession. It was a fiction, a writing exercise. She called it a form of antagonist journaling. She was trying to write from the perspective of a terrible person, a villain, someone capable of doing things she could never actually do. According to Verity, she never tried to kill the twins. She never intentionally drowned Harper. Harper's death was an accident, and the manuscript was simply the darkest fictional version of what happened. But there is more. Verity claims Jeremy found the manuscript before the accident, and he believed every word. He thought his wife had murdered their daughter, so Jeremy attacked Verity. Then he staged the car accident, and when he failed to kill her, Verity realized what he had done. She understood that Jeremy wanted her dead, so she pretended to be severely brain damaged. She pretended she couldn't move. She pretended she couldn't speak because she was terrified of him. And now Lovin is reading this letter after Verity is already dead, which means something horrifying has happened. If Verity's letter is true, then Lovin and Jeremy didn't kill a murderer. They killed a woman who may have been innocent. And Jeremy may have been the real killer all along. But there's still a problem. How do we know Verity's letter is telling the truth? Because Verity is an author, a professional storyteller, someone who understands exactly how powerful words can be. She could have been written the manuscript to manipulate Jeremy. She could have written the letter to manipulate Lovin, or both could contain pieces of truth. Maybe the manuscript was partially fictional. Maybe some of it was real. Maybe Verity really did love her children. Maybe she really did resent them. Maybe Harper's death was an accident. Or maybe Verity was exactly the monster described in the manuscript, and the letter was simply her final attempt to escape the consequences. We never get a definitive answer, and that's what makes the ending so disturbing. Because Lovin now has a choice. She can shoot Jeremy the letter and potentially destroy the life they have built together, or she can destroy it. She chooses to destroy it. She burns the evidence and keeps the secret. Because if the letter is true, then Jeremy is a murderer. But if the manuscript is true, then Jeremy killed the woman who murdered his daughter. And Lovin has no way of knowing which version is real. So she chooses the version she can live with. She stays with Jeremy, she keeps the truth buried, and she walks away.